Surprisingly, I'm finding that as I get even older, and I am old, I'm finding myself remembering long lost or forgotten moments in my life. And we're talking way back, decades prior. The short-term memory, that's beyond repair. The chair shots has said, no, you're just going to go about your day forgetting what happens moment to moment. And that's just what it is. Not going to change that. But for some reason, I'm like remembering things that I had long since forgotten or thinking about things I hadn't thought about in years. And this happened to me recently, and it seems to be typically with a trigger. And right now at the Goosh, over at the Patreon, one of the shows we're watching is Great Teacher Onizuka. There's a character in there at the part I'm in right now. Now, I believe her name is, but she comes in as a really, really hot nurse, school nurse. And my school nurses never looked like that because I wouldn't have been down at the nurse's office just trying to get out of science classes anymore. I'd have lived there if they looked like that. But anyway, she works hustling to sell, gimmicky little products, but also she works at a club at night, and there's some insinuation of the things that she's willing to do for money. Just light insinuation. And this made me remember a really, as I think back on it, a really kind of cool, memorable, and kind of emotional interaction I had with a prostitute. See, yeah, say you didn't see that coming, but I probably have something along those lines in the title, so you did. Yep, it was a really unique situation. It was back when I lived in California, back in my boxing days. I was heavily into boxing at the time, and this woman used to come into the gym just to stay in shape, and I would chat with her. I was probably, I don't know, 18, 19 at the time. She was older than me. She was probably close to 30, and she was just a real sweetheart. Pretty lady, too. Very nice. And I would chat with her, and I had a girlfriend at the time, so, it wasn't even like I was trying to romance her, but back when I was 18, 19, if you were 28, you were old anyway. Shit. Now I got infections that are older than 28. But we would talk a lot. And then suddenly the rumor started going through the gym that she was moonlighting in the oldest profession known to man. And that became the buzz of the gym. It's like, oh, we're gonna, oh, you know what she does on the side? I'll bet you, oh yeah. And guys would start to chat her up and stuff. And I didn't know if I believed it or not, but I remember not really giving a shit. We would always chat. We weren't like buds, but we would always chat with each other. She'd be out working on the machines that she worked on. I'd be in between rounds or whatever, and we'd hang out and talk a little bit. And that didn't change. I didn't think too much of it. And then one day, and it was like, I look back on it now, it's like, Jesus, something I should have written a movie about or something. The gym had just closed, and now the gym was right next to a park. And I was walking through the park, and she was there too. And she was walking the same way, so I said something, I'm sure it was wildly witty to her. And we walked down a little bit, and then there was this ledge at the edge of the park, that you sat on the edge of the ledge and it would drop down to the sidewalk below. And so we sat on the edge, on that ledge together. And it was just a really unique situation. Out of the blue, it was like, and I didn't even realize at the time. I was stupid. I was a teenager with no life experience. And I didn't realize what was going on. It was like she was kind of unburdening herself to me. And I found out that, yeah, she worked at one of the local factories all day. And she had one child at home. I think it was a little boy, if I remember right. I could be wrong on that. And she was working nights for an escort service. And she opened up to me about this. And she didn't say specifically what kind of extras one could purchase from an escort, but it was implied. And I understood that there were extras available to be the case. And she was really, as I think back on it, very confident but forlorn about the way she told her story. And her main focus was her child. And she said she would do whatever she had to do to make sure that her kid had the things that the other kids had. I mean, it does. It sounds like something right out of a movie, but it's real life. And so if that meant working for an escort company and maybe providing a little bit of extras for tips, her stance was, I do what I got to do to take care of my child, and I don't regret any of it, and whatever anybody thinks about it, too fucking bad. And that was some really, actually, good advice. Not necessarily for me to become a prostitute. I'd have done that in a heartbeat, but nobody's willing to pay for this. I mean, if you are, oh boy, do you have problems. But she was right. She was doing what she needed to do for herself and for her child, and fuck what anybody else thinks. And even while she said that, you could tell there was like a tinge of, well, you know, I'm saying it and I mean it 95% of the time. I'm sure that what family believed or her fear of family finding out was serious. Because again, you guys know me. I'm that type. I will tell you anything. I'm honest about anything because I don't give a shit what anybody thinks. And on those when I say anybody, I mean somebody that's outside of my circle of family and friends, which a lot of you are absolutely my circle of friends. What you guys think is important to me. What the rest of the world thinks is not. And I just don't care. That's why I've always said with being online and stuff, I can't be canceled because I don't give a fuck. Who wants to watch what I produce and who doesn't? That's to each one's individual preferences, but I really don't care about those that don't like me for whatever reason. And I think maybe a lot of that was instilled by this whole conversation. But I look back on that now, and I haven't thought about this. I'd forgotten about it. It's been literal decades. This would have been at least 40 years ago. And suddenly that memory came flooding back to me. And I remember sitting there on that ledge with her, and man, now that I look back on it, I wish so much I could find out what became of her. I only knew her first name. I didn't even know her last name at the time. And I'm not going to mention it just because in this bizarre world of the internet, I know the odds are 1,000,000 to 1, but it'd be just right that somebody could put some of this together and find out who that person was. And I don't want that. She doesn't. If she's still around, if she's still with us, she wasn't that much older than me. She should be. She doesn't need that. So I'm not even going to mention her first name, but man, I would love to know what happened. And I wish, in hindsight, I wish I had a little bit more wherewithal and a little bit more life experience, because she was really opening up to me. And from what I do remember, I wish I would have been less of, and it wasn't because of lack of empathy. It was just because of lack of awareness. I was just like, oh yeah, well, no, I get you. That's cool. And I think she really just wanted somebody to maybe like put their arm around her and tell her, you're doing the right shit. Everything's going to be okay. And you're 100% right. You don't worry about what other people think. Do what's right for you and your kid. And I think just what I got to know of her in that experience, I'm thinking she probably did. But it was a really amazing moment. And I don't know if my retelling of this story if I've given you guys the actual feel of what I feel from that conversation that night, but it was really cool. And some of the best advice I ever got came from, well, a hooker. But that's not surprising, because it doesn't matter what your profession is. It doesn't matter what you do in life. I've said this 1,000,000 times. Whatever you do to make money, good for you. As long as you're not hurting anybody else. And trust me, prostitutes are not hurting anybody. They're making them happy. Whatever you're doing, good for you. Get out there and grind it away and make that money. But boy, I really wish I know I could find out somehow what happened to her and where she is. But wherever it is, I hope life has been good to her, and I hope she's really happy, and I hope her kid is just ultra mega successful. Oh, and I had to take my camera back out because I forgot to tell you guys, I want to at least wrap up the story. As far as my knowledge of her, it actually wasn't too long after we had this little conversation out on the ledge there that she stopped coming to the gym. Rumor had it from around the gym, just that she had moved and there was nothing more to it than that. And I hope that to be the case, that she had just found a better situation for herself. But it was a cool moment in time for me, and it was fleeting because I probably only saw her a handful of times after that, and then she was gone.